Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Finland once again, but this time we are not going to review a Riku beer, which is quite unusual for a Finnish review here on the channel. This beer actually came through Systembolaget here in Sweden. So yeah, maybe we're going to get some more Finnish beer here now, which will be great to see. But since it is a Finnish review, a massive shout out to Riku Sanaksanaho. Anyway, my Finnish beer mule, he's responsible for now 99% of the Finnish reviews that you see here on Rampant Lion Reviews. Lovely guy, picks me out some great beers, and yeah, it's really cool to shed light on the Finnish beer scene because it's not that well known, but it is pretty strong in my opinion. But anyway, the brewery that we're going to return to today is one that is featured on the channel a good few times before. If people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they are very well rounded and very experimental, and whatever they try seems to go pretty well, I have to say. But this beer itself is a style that I have reviewed from them before. The last time we reviewed this style was maybe 2 or 3 months ago now, if memory serves me correctly, but this beer has had very good things written about it. And yeah, they seem to do this one every year actually. It's got a little bit of a Finnish touch to it as well, which is quite interesting. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Espoo, which is just a little bit to the northwest of Helsinki, the capital in the south of Finland, and we're going to have a look at another beer then from Salama Brewing Company, or Lightning Brewing Company as it would be in English. So this particular beer is called Mashed Rune. This is the rum barrel-aged version, and it's the 2022 vintage as well. I understand this beer's been released a couple of times before, but this one is an Imperial pastry stout coming in at 10.8% ABV. So yeah, this should be quite nice actually. This beer was released here in Sweden as part of the Tillfälligt temporary assortment through Systembolaget in very early February of 2023. So yeah, this should be pretty cool. We've reviewed a good few beers from Salama in the past. I think this is my 6th or 7th review from them now. Like I said, they always tend to be pretty solid, and we've got a really nice one apparently to review still from the Riku box as well. So yeah, when I saw this one getting released through Systembolaget, I thought, you know, why not? Let's have a look at this and see what one they've chosen. So yeah, let's crack on then and see what this beer is going to have in store for us. The Mashed Rune Rum Barrel Aged Edition from Salama Brewing Company in Espoo in Finland. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Salama Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer with the geography tagging system. Just go up to the search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I review beers from your local area, they should pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Finnish playlist along with many others, and there are a good number of playlists in there as well that you can check out. But yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at my notes for Salama Brewing Company. So, Salama Brewing Company, as I've mentioned to you already, is based in Espoo in Finland, a little bit to the northwest of the capital Helsinki, and the company was founded back in 2018 by a group of friends. So the men behind this company are Christian Holmlund, Jaakko Ailio, Johannes Järvinen, and Ville Sarikoski. So Christian is the CEO, and he has a background in running small and medium enterprises, SMEs, while Jaakko is the brewer and Johannes takes care of the bureaucracy side of things, and Ville acts as the art director of the company. But the brewery is very close to the IKEA and the Jorvi Hospital out to the north of Espoo, and their brewing equipment that they have came from China, and they've got a theoretical capacity of around 130,000 litres of beer per year, although in the first year they only brewed around 50,000, and they have been gradually expanding that capacity over the years. They recently opened up a little terrace at the brewery where you can buy the cans and sit outside. And Yako had said in the early days that they would focus mainly on the lighter styles of beer, such as like pale ales, IPAs, double IPAs, and also some sour beers. But in more recent times, they have been expanding and doing the kind of bigger, more malty types of beer, you know, your Imperial stouts, your barley wines, wheat wines, you name it, these guys have been playing around with it. And they've also been doing some kind of barrel-aged beers as well, actually, over the last wee while, which has been very interesting. When they reach their full capacity, though, they do plan to export around 70% of their output, which is doable because, you know, Finland is only about 4.5 million people, something like that. And, you know, it's a business model that the Baltic countries actually tend to see as well. Quite a lot of the breweries down there in Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia export quite a lot of their beer just because the country's population is small. But as of February 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 180 different kinds of beer. And the other thing to point out is that these guys do have a tap room in the centre of Helsinki as well, which is worth going and checking out. If you want to see what the brewery and tap room, of course, look like, you can check out my Out and About video, which was filmed, I believe, in July or August of 2022. So go and check that out. Like we mentioned earlier as well, the name Salama translates into English as Lightning Brewery, and you'll see why when I show you the brewery symbol in just a little second. But yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Salama Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can also check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all those different beers that they've produced. So yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at this beer itself. So just to let you have a little look at the artwork on this one then, before we open the beer up, you can see this one's got another one of these kind of shiny things that the camera is not going to like. Camera doesn't like shiny things, but there you can see on the back, there is the Salama Brewing Company symbol there, which is pretty cool. There you can see mashed Rune and the rum barrel-aged edition, but yeah, this one does seem to be pretty nice. So like I said, there has been a few different vintages of this beer. There's been the 2021 and 2022 version of this. I actually thought the 2022 version was 11.5%, but maybe that was the 2021. But yeah, it tells you on the back here, dedicated to the epic Runeberries Days Festival, rum barrel-aged pastry stout conditioned on real Runeberry torts, an apocalyptic mix of dark roasted malts, sweet raspberries, almonds and cosmic goodness. So yeah, I actually wrote a little bit down about the Romberry tarts as well, or Runeberry tarts. So this beer apparently is aged for about 1 year in the barrels. It's made with the real Runeberry tarts, which we've said, and these are actually a little Finnish cake, so they're little brown things, and you've got a layer of icing on the top and raspberry jam in the middle, but these cakes are made from almonds and rum, apparently, so aging this beer in a rum barrel seems quite logical, to be honest with you. So yeah, this should be quite an interesting one. But like I said to you, an 10.8%, sorry, keep doing that, 10.8% Imperial pastry stout aged in rum barrels with Finnish Runeberry torts. I'll need to see if I can try one of those at some stage. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. The mashed Rune rum barrel aged edition from Salama Brewing Company. I would actually, something that's just come into my mind there is I might be talking rubbish in terms of the ABV of these different vintages of beer. Like I might have been looking at the non-barrel aged version actually. So just keep that in mind. I might have lied to you accidentally there earlier on in the video. But yeah, there we go. Look at that. I think for the moment that head is going to need to calm down a little bit before we taste the beer, so we'll have a wee look at it now and see what it's all about. But yeah, anyway, when you think about what style this beer is, there's nothing madly surprising about the appearance. So you've got a solid 1.5 fingers of a frothy, I would say light kind of beige coloured head on this one. I'll just let you have a wee look at that. There's some smaller bubbles toward the surface of the liquid there, but a few bigger ones going further up, but still it does look very, very nice. And the liquid itself, you know, lovely, big, dark, ebony rosewood colour. If I shine the light through this beer, there's not a lot coming through this one. This beer is pretty much black as night. So yeah, lovely, dark, ebony rosewood colour. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on, one, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar is caramelised, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put in will affect the colour of the beer as well. But yeah, just remember, it's yeah, when it comes to beers that have like black malt and things in them, it's very difficult to change the colour of the beer with adjuncts or barrel aging or anything like that. But yeah, you can see this beer has just kind of calmed down a little bit. The head has gone down to be a nice thin foamy layer, and it looks a little bit darker now actually, but it's fading away to just be pretty much nothing in the middle with a little bit of a thicker ring around at the edge of the glass there. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking to the side of the glass and a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there. But yeah, it does look pretty damn nice, I have to say. So let's have a closer look at the aroma of this one and just see what it's all about. So yeah, let's have a wee look at this aroma. Curious about this, I have to say. Oh yeah, right. I'm going to say straight away, this does smell pretty epic, I have to say. And, you know, as I've said to you on the channel before, for me, Imperial pastry stouts can be a real hit or miss. And I think this one is most likely to be a hit, to be honest with you. Just going from the aroma, I think. Yeah, because one of the things I tend not to like about this style is the kind of granola. You know, one of the things I tend not to like about this style is the sort of granola type flavour that you can get in these beers. But this one actually smells as if it's going to be very smooth and very silky, I have to say. So I'm very curious to see what it's going to have in store for us. It's quite an unusual aroma, this one, I have to say. I've not encountered one quite like this before. So, yeah, the first thing that's striking me about this beer is sort of how creamy and sort of silky and thick it is, but at the same time it's got a lovely woody backbone to it and quite a bit of sweetness, and obviously you're getting a lot of nutty character out of this beer too, which I do have to compliment. So yeah, the way that goes together in this one I think is really quite nice. But yeah, let's try and break this beer down for you and just describe that aroma a little bit more in depth. Let's see what we have. Yeah, so the backbone of this beer, absolutely, you get this lovely, you get this lovely kind of, smooth, oaky backbone in there. You can definitely pick up a little bit of the sweeter oak in there and a little bit of vanilla, and then you have that, little bit of sort of rum, sugar and things in there, so you can smell the sugar cane from the rum spirit in there. But above all of that, you have this very, yeah, it's a bit difficult to describe actually. It's a sort of cakey, it's like a dry, cakey, brownie type aroma. And it's obviously from the little torts that they've put in this themselves. And to me, just aroma wise, it's like a very dry, woody and nutty, cakey sponge type thing that's coming out of this beer in that sense. So definitely getting some of that. There's maybe just a little touch of a roasty, toasty, black malty character underneath, but really no. The backbone of the beer for me is the wood, the spirit, a little bit of vanilla in there. You do get just that little touch of roasty dryness, but then yeah, it's like a cakey type quality. It's a cakey note on top of this. Yeah, you've got this lovely kind of smooth cakey note on top of it. And like I say, it's quite a dry cake. I can definitely get the sort of almond and nutty type qualities out of it for sure. And you know, this is a cake I've never tried before. I'm not a big cake man, I have to say. But yeah, you definitely get that dry kind of cakey note out of it. It's got like a sort of rum brandy type note to it, but something a wee bit different. It did say that there was another spirit they can use, not necessarily rum, in these torts as well, but from what I understand, the one that they're using in this is actually a vegan cake as well, so that might be the reason why it smells a little bit drier and not quite as juicy. I've always found that vegan cakes have, they're just not quite as, they tend to be a little bit more sort of oily and stuff like this. They tend to have just a really thick consistency to them actually. but that might just be me. They're not quite as soft and airy and spongy as kind of regular cakes, if that makes sense. But vegan chocolate cake can be very nice, I have to say. I think they use carob and stuff in that. But yeah, definitely the cakey notes you get out of this one are very, really quite dry in a sense, and there's a little bit of nuttiness and woodiness and so on in there. And yeah, absolutely. But you can certainly smell a wee bit of the kind of icing sugar and the kind of raspberry jammy notes as well. That's definitely coming out in the middle of the nose too. But above that, I'm getting little bits of like cocoa nib. And it's quite a dry cocoa nib, but still quite sweet at the same time. So you've got this lovely dry kind of cocoa nibby note, a sort of 30-40% cocoa chocolate. But you've also got a kind of an even lighter chocolate than that further forward on the nose. There's maybe just a wee touch of a caramelly, biscuity sort of nose as well. So yeah, a little bit of a caramelly, biscuity sort of thing. Yeah, so a little bit of a sweet caramel, a little bit of a biscuity note, and then all of just a little bit of the cocoa nib underneath. Yeah. It is just quite interesting, this one. I feel I'm not giving the aroma full justice in this because it smells lovely, but it is quite difficult to describe in that sense. On the hoppy side of things, there's a little bit of there's a little touch of green components still there. There's a little bit of smooth earthiness, there's a little bit of bright floral character, and also some grassiness too. So I do like how that kind of pieces together in this one. So yeah, definitely there is still some of the green component there, and of course the longer you keep this beer, the more the green component is going to drop out of it. The longer you would age it in the barrel as well, it's going to give you less of a hoppy character, but still some green component there in my mind. And on the fruity side of things, it's quite interesting too, because you get a little bit of, you do get a little touch of that kind of phenolic type quality out of it, that that kind of medicinal cough syrupy Cavonia type thing. There's definitely a wee bit of that going on in this one, but otherwise the fruits are quite nice. I get quite a lot of juicy plum out of this one. So yeah, juicy plums on the top. There is a little bit of prune and date underneath. I'm getting little bits of sultana and little bits of a more kind of oily dried pear, something like that. And at the front of the nose, blackberry. Absolutely getting some blackberry out of this one. So yeah, some really nice blackberry to the beer, and just a bit, yeah, definitely some fig in there as well underneath. So aroma wise, this is really quite interesting. I've never come across an Imperial Stout or even a pastry stout that smells quite like this one. But like I say, this beer's had good write-ups, so I'm curious about it, because Imperial pastry stouts can be a hit or a miss for me. So yeah. So let's just see what this is going to have in store for us. So yeah, this one is the mashed Rune Rum Barrel Aged Edition, an Imperial pastry stout at 10.8%. Did it say? Yeah, sorry, I was going to say 11% there. I keep doing that. 10.8% ABV from Salama Brewing Company in Espoo in Finland. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål, cheers. Oh, that's pretty nice, I have to say. First impression of it is it's very silky, very big, silky, smooth Imperial Stout, this one. And it has got a wee bit of dryness to it, but it's got a lot of sweetness and a lot of really nice fruity character. So I really like how this goes together, actually. I'm going to say that straight away from the first sip. So big thumbs up to Salama Brewing Company for this beer. I think it goes together very well. That's very nice to drink, actually. I'm trying to remember the name of the last Imperial stout I had from them. The last beer we had was the wheat wine, which was quite interesting. But apparently when the one that I still have to do from Salama, I think that one is going to be an absolute banger. But this is very, very nice as well, I have to say. So thumbs up to Salama for this. I think this is probably the best stout I've had from them actually so far. But yeah, let's have a wee look at it. Let's actually try and break this down for you and just describe it a bit more in depth. This one finds a really nice balance between the sweetness, the kind of pastry, savoury side of things, and the fruit, and it's just got that wee bit of hoppy character lingering too. It's a very nicely done beer, this one, as I say. It does go together well. So, where do we start with this? Middle third of your palate then. You can feel the backbone of this beer is that lovely smooth oaky character there. That is the back of that's the backbone of the beer. Toward the front of that middle third of your palate, you start to get a wee touch of the vanilla coming out there, and that lingers into the aftertaste. The rum that's been aged in this barrel has definitely gone on to be a brown rum, that's for sure, or a dark rum, because you can taste the sweetness in that. Above the wood, you've got this layer of spirit there, and you can tell that it's been a nice dark rum that's sat in there on top of it. So yeah, absolutely, the way that this goes together, I think is very very nice. So yeah, that smooth, as I say, the smooth woody backbone in there, the rum spirit on top of it, and then yeah, you've just got that wee bit of vanilla. But above that, you do get a little bit of a toasty black malty backbone to this one. You can feel that there, but it's not overly aggressive and dry and things. It's just actually quite nice and smooth in that regard. So above that though, you do start to get this kind of dense cakey type quality out of the beer. I was tempted to say there's a wee bit of rye bread in there, but I'm not really sure about that actually. I wouldn't say there's a particularly rye bready type flavour to this one. It is more like a kind of spongy cake type character, and it's a bit more airy and light than I was expecting it to be from the aroma. As I've said, when I've eaten vegan cakes before, they've always been like really oily and you know, it's like it's almost like Swedish kladdkaka, you know, you get that oily sludgy type quality, and they've always had that type of consistency to them. But maybe I need to try a few more different ones. But the way that the cakes come out in this beer are it comes out really nicely, and as I say, I'm pretty sure it said on this one that they were using some kind of vegan Runeberry tort in this one. So yeah, you've got this layer of kind of cake in there, that there's a sort of kind of light spongy layer, but then when you go above that, you start to get this really dense, like Swedish kladdkaka kind of brownie type layer to it as well. So the flavour in this beer is really layered. As I say, a little bit of roasty toasty malt, a little bit of a lighter, more airy sponge, and then above that you've got this really dense you have this really dense almost kladdkaka brownie type layer to it as well. But within that, you can taste the nuts. It's like a very almondy, pecan, nutty type cake that you get out of this one. And I think there's a little bit of rum in it, but I think it said there was another spirit, Amarak or something, which I've never encountered before, that's been used in this, because it's got a little bit more of a kind of slightly spicy, almost like aquaviti type character to it as well. So you've got a little bit of a herbal quality, but you can pick up the sweetness of the rum. And then, yeah, you've got the nutty aspect of the cake and the sponge, obviously, as well. So the sort of cakey characteristic, the cakey, like in a dense cakey layer that you get out of this beer is really interesting too. There's quite a few wee things going on with that. So yeah, see, I really do like how how all of that pieces together. Yeah, so on top of that cakey layer, you start to get some of the more definitive chocolatey type things. So you can feel on top of that cakey layer at the back of the middle third of your palate, you have got a more dark chocolatey note, and it does have a little bit of that cocoa nibby dryness though, but yeah, you've got a 60-70% cocoa chocolate dark character in there. But as you move further forward across that middle third of your palate, you get a little bit more of a, you can feel that the chocolate gradually mellows out and becomes a little bit sweeter. So you get more of a, it gradually progresses and brightens up, and it becomes more like a sort of 50-ish% cocoa chocolate as you reach the front of that middle third of your palate, which is quite nice. Yeah. So yeah, the way that goes together is quite nice as well. But above that, there is a sort of circle in the middle of your palate where you've got this kind of leathery brown sugary note there. So it makes me wonder how long a wort boil this beer has actually had, because it would kind of make sense with the density of some of the cakey flavours in this one too. But from what I understand, the way I understood it when I read it was the cakey character that this beer has, that it's also been conditioned in the barrel with some of these torts. So yeah, that's kind of interesting too. But yeah, in terms of the kind of the brown sugar, that sort of circle I'm talking about in the middle of the palate, you can feel there's a good bit of leatheriness in there, which indicates a longer wort boil. But above that, you've got a more kind of treacly molasses type element to this one. The brown sugars in this beer are actually pretty dark and pretty leathery and dry, which is kind of interesting, but I think that suits the overall vibe of the beer. And at 10.8% ABV, the way this goes together is pretty nice. Yeah, I think this, I do think this goes together very nicely in that regard. I think that covers, to be honest with you, everything that we really need to say about that middle third of the palate. In some ways, this beer is really quite straight shooting, but in other ways, it's got a little bit of complexities. But whatever is going on in this one, I definitely really like it. So yeah. In terms of, let's go on to the back third of the palate then and have a wee look at that. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of a kind of bready build up in there. Then the base of that back third of your palate is a little bit more, it's a little bit of a more kind of smooth, you can feel the woody character is a little bit drier. As I've always said, you know, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back on the palate, whereas sweeter flavours come out further forward. So you've got more of a kind of dry woody character there on the back third of the palate. Then you can feel the rum above that, and the rummy character is a little bit more kind of it is a little bit drier again, but you can feel it's a little bit toasty and also a little bit sweet. Then you've got a kind of bready character above that. You can feel that fluffy kind of brown bready note. And then above all that, you get the more dense cakey character. But as I say, those two layers are definitely taller on that back third of the palate. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together in that sense is very, very nice. So yeah, that the back third of the palate actually is, you do get this almost more kind of brandy soaked character out of the beer in that back third of your palate too, which I really do quite like. You can feel more of the kind of spirit in there as well. Above all of those cakey layers though, you start to get, you can feel there's a really sweet fruit, you know, sort of fruit loaf, brandy soaked kind of bready character from the yeast, and you've almost just got a little bit of honeycomb and stuff there too. But definitely the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour of the beer is definitely taller, and then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just squashes down and condenses together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that the beer goes together in that sense is really quite nice. But yeah, I think it goes together nicely too. Yeah, I think that covers everything about the malty and yeasty side of the beer. Let's focus on the hoppy side of things. So, back corners of the palate, there is a little bit of earthiness there and a wee touch of a kind of herbal thing as well. So, yeah, there's a little earthy kind of character there, a little bit of a herbal quality going further forward. But then, yeah, as you move toward the kind of front corners of the palate, it's got a little bit more. There's a little bit more of a kind of floral note to it, and then around the front curve of the tongue, you've got a little bit of a lighter grassy sort of thing. I'm not sure exactly when this beer was canned, but like I said earlier, the longer you leave these beers in the can, which you can do because you can age these things, but the more the green component will drop out of the beer. And this one actually, as I say, there's a little bit less green in this beer in the flavour than I thought there was going to be from the aroma, actually. But yeah, a little bit of earthiness, a little bit of herbal character. It gets gradually more floral as you push toward the front corners of the palate and round the front curve of the tongue. It's just that little bit lighter and more grassy, actually. So yeah, I like how that goes together. So yeah. I like that. I definitely like how that green component goes together. But let's look at the front third of the palate, and I can feel the booze in this beer going to my head a little bit. So yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate. You get a little bit of a kind of cakey build up in there. It's like a little bit of a chocolate brownie sort of thing, but you also have that wee bit of a kind of brandy soaked bread type thing going on as well. But the base of that front third of your palate, there's the woodiness in there from the rum. You can get the sweeter aspects of the rum spirit too, and then you have that wee yeah, you've got the woody character, the rum spirit, and then you also get just a little touch of a kind of cakey note on top of that too. But then above all of that, you've got that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at that. So for me, this beer, you get quite a little bit of a to me it's more dry in its fruity character. You get a lot of prune. Underneath that there's a lot of date and sultana, which I do quite like. So prunes, dates and sultanas. As you move toward the middle of that front third of your palate, it's got a really lovely, oily, peary type quality to it. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is very, very nice. Yeah, I think that's fair. Prunes, dates, and sultanas underneath, and a little bit of an oily pear. But as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, it kind of sweetens up a little bit. So when you first take the beer in as well, the fruit is definitely more kind of rounded and sharp in a way. There's figs in there, there's black currant, and there's also you've also got a lovely little bit of blackberry on the front tip of your tongue too, which is very, very nice. So yeah, blackberries, black currants underneath, and a wee bit of fig on the front half of that front third of your palate. But the fruity side of this beer is really nice and rounded and quite complex actually, and you've just got that little bit of phenolic medicinal type quality underneath too. So yeah, I like how that goes together. But we can round off now and have a wee look at the mouthfeel of this beer. I think we've described the flavour quite a little bit with this one, done it quite well. As I say, booze has gone to my head with this beer. So yeah, mouthfeel wise, I would say that this one is pretty much full bodied. It's kind of in the middle part of full bodied. So yeah, mid range full bodied beer. This one, very smooth, low carbonation, but very silky, very thick in a way. So yeah, very thick, very thick, full, mid-range, full-bodied, thick, smooth carbonation beer, this one. In terms of its IBUs, it's quite difficult to place in that sense, actually. It's because this beer is more dry than bitter in a lot of ways. So and it's quite easy to conflate those two things. So the dryness you get out of this beer is maybe the equivalent of sort of 40 or 50 IBUs, if that at all makes sense. But the malt base has the nice dry woody character in it. You've got the sweet spirit, you've got the more kind of savoury, cakey type note, which defines the pastry stout style, and then you've got the sweetness and things on top of that. At the front of the palate, of course, you've got the more oily, fruity notes there, and the fruity side of the beer for me is quite dry, but at the same time it's got a lovely oiliness and a slight sharpness to it as well. So yeah, lovely mix of dry and more oily, fruity characters in there, a bit of dryness out of the whole, over the whole beer, but yeah, not too much in the way of IBUs, but the dryness you get is maybe the equivalent of sort of 40 or 50 IBUs in this beer. So yeah, this is one of the pastry stouts that gets a thumbs up from me. Like I say, this style can be very much a hit or a miss for me, but Salama have pulled off a very nice beer with this one actually. So yeah, I think we can leave this review there. So this one was the mashed Rune Rum barrel-aged edition at 10.8% ABV. Very interesting beer. Like I said, the booze from this one has gone to my head a little bit, but still, I very much like this beer. So thumbs up to Salama for another solid one. I think we can leave this review there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Salama Brewing Company as well. And we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, slange it, skull, cheers, keepies, and ketos.